So I just got sent this link. I got sent this link from NPR, and it's apparently about how an attendance policy has led the U.S. to the brink of a nationwide rail strike, like railroad workers strike. Very serious if that happens. According to Kiwi TP in my chat, 19% of our freight goes through trains. So you hear that, autistic viewers right now. This is going to be an absolute devastating hit to my autistic viewers. If these railroad workers strike and the trains stop running, this is going to be devastating. Absolutely devastating to that community. We cannot allow this to happen, frankly. No, in all seriousness, like so many essential workers in the pandemic, the engineers and conductors who drive the nation's freight trains have had it. They're tired of unpredictable, inflexible work schedules. They're tired of being penalized for taking days off when they're sick or tending to a family emergency, and they want a better quality of life. Now they're making their voices heard, threatening a strike that could bring trains to a halt nationwide on Friday. Freight railroads and the unions representing more than 100,000 rail workers have been negotiating a contract for several years. The stakes are high, and a presidential emergency board appointed by President Biden recommended a compromise over the summer that would give workers a 24% increase in wages. Both sides, Dark Biden rising, or Dark Brandon, I apologize. Both sides, the unions and the railroad companies, have essentially agreed to the board's economic proposals. But there remains one major sticking point that could derail all of it: a workplace attendance policy that the unions call draconian. This abusive and punitive attendance policy is breaking apart families and causing locomotive engineers and other railroaders. Interesting. I've never heard that term, railroader. I guess I have, but I've never heard it used in this context. I guess that's what it means. And other railroaders to come to work dangerously fatigued. The Brotherhood of Locomotive Engineers and Trainmen said in a statement in May. That's actually a really good point. Holy fuck. Derail, good one. Yep, pun intended, 100%. No way. No fucking way that was not an intended pun. Anyway, in all seriousness, I've never thought about it. That's actually a really good point. You do not want Why am I so bad at talking today? What is my tongue doing? Is it paralyzed? No. You do not want railroad workers to show up to work fatigued and too tired to do their job properly. Whew, that just sounds like a recipe for disaster. That's like next to pilot comes to work drunk, or, I don't know, window washer does his job strung out on heroin. You know, it just doesn't really, it really doesn't sound like the kind of thing that leads to positive things to happen. The unions now want a change to that policy to ensure that workers can take time off to tend to medical needs when necessary without fear of discipline. Completely understandable, completely based. In the middle of the pandemic, railroads introduced a policy that workers hate. Points-based attendance policies are not new. Employers, including Amazon and Walmart, very shining examples of of treating your employees well when it comes to Amazon and Walmart, absolutely very well known for their employee working conditions, their hours, all of that stuff. Very, very well loved companies. BNSF Railway introduced its version called High Vis in February 2022, saying it would improve consistency for both crews and customers. The unions say it has only made things worse. Even before the system was introduced, railroad conductors and engineers were essentially on call all the time. Outside of paid vacation and personal leave days, which they do accrue in amounts determined by seniority, when they got called to work, they generally have either 90 minutes or 2 hours to report to work. Under High Vis, if they are unavailable to report to work in that window, they're docked points from a starting balance of 30. Deductions range from 2 to 25 points depending on the day. The more valuable the day, the higher the deduction. That only leaves you 5 points left if they take 25 out of 30. That means Fridays, Saturdays, holidays, and so-called high-impact days, including Mother's Day and Super Bowl Sunday, result in larger deductions. When their point balance falls to zero, they face a 10-day suspension. After that, their points are reset to 15. If their balance falls to zero again, it's a 20-day suspension. If there's a third time, the worker faces termination. There are several ways workers can earn back points, including being available to work for 14 consecutive days. Interesting. Americans went on a pandemic buying spree after railroads had paired. I've never heard this term used before. Pard staff back, partial staff back. I don't know what it's referring to. A number of factors put pressure on the railroads to implement such a system. For one thing, cargo volumes in the pandemic soared to record highs as Americans went on a buying spree. There was simply a lot of stuff that had to be moved, and BNSF says it needs consistent and reliable attendance to stay competitive. So this is one of those issues that I'm kind of torn on when it comes to like the anti-work movement and socialism and everything. There are just going to be certain jobs that there has to always be people there to do. Like, not even for a day can the railroad lines go down. Not even for a day could, like, Amazon shipping, like, services go down. People ship fresh food to people and stuff like that. That goes bad if not refrigerated within 24 hours. So it gets, shipped in a 24-hour window and stuff. Like, there are just things that there always has to be somebody on call working to keep that industry or that sector running. And that makes me wonder, is automation such a bad thing then? If so many of these jobs, in order to get done, obviously an easy solution is increasing pay so that working these crazier hours is at least more well compensated, not, as horrible for the workers as it is now, or alternatively, automation. But automation has the downside of taking away jobs in the first place. People need jobs. We're trying to reduce the harm that the workers face while doing their job, not make them lose their job. So automation isn't a good solution to that, obviously. If a strike does happen, the feds will absolutely deploy the military to scab. I don't know. I don't know if that's necessarily going to happen, but if it happens, we'll see what happens, I guess. This might be one of the biggest strikes in American history, right? BNSF Railway stands by the policy. Very cringe. It seems like they are not buckling so far. BNSF says it made changes to its attendance policy earlier this year based on employee feedback, including increasing the number of points a worker can accrue with good performance. So I guess you can get points back. Since starting its points-based attendance system, the company says it has more planned vacation days taken as compared with before the system was in use. Okay? That has no bearing on why these workers are striking. I really do love that. When these big companies talk about the way they treat their workers, you know what it sounds like? It sounds like an abusive husband who like hits their wife, or like an abusive like parent that hits their kids or something. That's like, what about this completely unrelated thing I did for you? Why are you complaining about this objectively bad thing? What about this nice thing I did for you? Like, you can't complain about this. I did that. That's completely unrelated. It really does kind of remind me of that, more people are taking more scheduled vacation days. But has the amount of scheduled vacation days they can take changed? No, but they're taking more. It's still not enough for the unions. I love the way they frame it. It's still not enough for the unions. After laboring through the pandemic, they say workers deserve better. Yeah, no shit. They often do. Bisbicus. Oh my god. What a last name this individual has. I gotta drop this individual's name, copy paste it into the chat. This is unironically this person's last name. Bisbicus. Bisbicus says there's been a mass exodus of workers because of the attendance policy. I'm not talking about just young guys who don't have a lot invested so they can go start another career, she says. I'm talking about older, invested 21 plus years at the railroad. They've left. They've left because they don't want to deal with it. When you've got like 21 plus year, like fucking veterans that have been working at these railroad areas and on the railroad quitting because of this shit, we are really looking at some bad working conditions then. If working conditions were better 25 years ago, then things are bad. I want you to think about that for a second. That implies that things were better 25 years ago for these workers on these rail lines. Can you imagine that? You know what's also really fucked up? You know who else needs to go on a fucking strike? UPS drivers. UPS drivers need to go on a strike and get fully insulated, climate-controlled trucks for their mail delivery. I know them not having doors makes it easier. I think our USPS, like, mail people do need this as well. The most I've ever seen USPS delivery drivers and UPS drivers and what have you ever have has been like a fan. The Amazon delivery drivers, they're driving in like just a giant like van, like the kind of van that if it was all white, you'd think you could literally write free candy and kidnap kids with it, like that kind of van, like a fully insulated, like climate controlled, air conditioned or heated van, you know? Like, and that's what the Amazon drivers are using for delivering their packages in many cases to like directly, at least my Amazon driver always does. Like, damn, okay, you're completely insulated. But when the USPS and the UPS guy shows up, nothing but a fan blowing on them in like 120-degree heat. They die all the fucking time. There's been tons of mail workers that have had heat stroke and died. Like doing that. It's really fucked up. Literally all mail workers need to strike. I used to work for USPS. Everyone gets treated like shit. I don't even know about the treatment behind the scenes, but if they're willing to just show the world the fact they allow their UPS drivers to drive around with fucking swampy, sweaty tits and fucking slimy, sweaty balls all day, near heat stroke with God knows, with however much water they have with them, for God knows how much pay, driving all around all day, sitting on your ass, only being able to get up to make menial walks back and forth to different like boxes to drop shit off. It really does seem like kind of a, if you like mundane, repetitive jobs, like it would be fun one, but if you prefer to have a little bit more excitement in your life, it would be miserable. Just absolutely miserable. My point being, by the way, to bring that whole tangent that seemed completely unrelated back around, how much do you want to bet that, like, the caboose and the cab, I believe I used the right terminology, of these trains, in most cases is not climate controlled? I've seen the caboose and the cabin of modern day trains, and they don't look like they're climate controlled. I'm not saying I know they aren't. I'm just saying they don't look like they would be. They seem like the kind of pieces of machinery that they would just kind of condemn the workers to just kind of deal with it on. Very much like they condemn our USPS and UPS workers to deal with. So not only that, but I'm pretty sure these workers are dealing with the elements. It's usually not climate controlled. Yeah, so that alone is fucking ridiculous. Not having access to decent cooling or heating when the weather is too far in the opposite direction. I grew up in Florida, okay? I grew up in Florida and I knew people who had family members that died from heat stroke. It's a real thing. It's a known thing that once you start getting prickly heat, which is like when your chest and your neck starts to get like dots and like sort of like a speckling of pink from the heat and the sweat, like that's when you got to get inside because you're about to have a heat stroke. You're told to like keep an eye out for that. You see it on your friend, you tell them, hey, you might want to go inside or get some water. You see it on yourself, you try to get inside or get water, because it can be very easy to forget that you're getting dehydrated, because there's like, it's kind of like hypothermia, where like you go over a certain threshold and you start to feel fine, and then you fucking die because you don't realize that you're dying. you know? So, yeah, very dangerous. It is very, very dangerous. The heat is bad. The cold is bad. We really need to improve the working conditions of these workers that are doing jobs that are so fucking necessary. How many things have you ordered on Amazon in the last, like, month alone? Probably quite a few things. How many things have been delivered to you through UPS or USPS? How much of the food, by the way, how much of the food or any products that you have bought or consumed or used in the last month were at any point delivered via truck or train to where they were either, made or harvested and then sold to you from? Guess what? Truck drivers and train conductors and train railroad workers involved in the transport of those things. Don't even get me started on, like, dock workers, that deal with, like, unloading the giant fucking crates, the huge storage crates off of tanker ships. When you start to feel fine, that means you're past the point where evolutionarily any of your ancestors survived. That makes absolutely no fucking sense. A lot, actually. We'd be a fucking food desert without truck drivers and train conductors. Yeah, it's exactly the point I was making, Witch Knight Melody. I was asking you, how many of these products that you've consumed in just the last month alone would you not even have access to if it weren't for these very, very vital jobs? These very vital workers who are doing a very, very necessary task that needs to get done for our entire civilization to function. Anyway, I do think it was important for me to discuss this. It is probably one of the most, like, the biggest strikes or potential strikes, worker strikes that could be happening, possibly ever in American history, though that's probably a little bit of a stretch. Definitely one of the biggest strikes that's happened in a long time, for sure. So I think it's worth talking about and definitely worth bringing some attention to. So if this in any way kind of hits close to home for you, then I definitely recommend looking into it, because I haven't seen anybody else covering this. And granted, the news came out today, so it's pretty new, but still, hopefully now you're glad to have heard about it, and perhaps even you'll take part in some way. Maybe there might even be a campaign fund for the striking workers that you can donate to or something. Who knows what could end up happening. So I'm just glad to get more eyes on this, because I feel like it's very important. Based workers' rights. With all that said, Bo talked about it. He would be talking about this. Yeah, this is the type of thing he'd talk about. Bo, the Fifth Column's dope as fuck. I really like him. Anyway, though, if you enjoyed this video, please consider leaving a like. I really do appreciate it. It's not a simple hollow show of support. YouTube completely buffed the like button. It actually, like, genuinely contributes to helping the channel in pretty significant ways. Whether you're watching live or after the fact, it does help a lot. So just hit that green thumbs up button. It really does help a lot. Or I guess it's blue now. I don't even know. In other words, as well, if you want to follow my social media, which is linked down below, then you can see all the other stuff that I'm doing on the internet. And, of course, you can subscribe and ring the bell icon here on YouTube to see what other fun, amazing content I'm making. And finally, if you want to support me financially, just, go the extra mile a little bit and, help me pay my bills, help me keep producing this content for you. You can always do so by making an account on my website and donating, subscribing, or gifting a sub there, or even doing so on YouTube, Twitch, Streamlabs, StreamElements, or Patreon, which, by the way, all links in the description as well. Thank you so much for watching, though, regardless of how you support me. I really do appreciate it, even if all you did is come here and lurk. Every single viewer, I really do appreciate just generally hanging out. It contributes to the general environment for me. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it, and have a good one.